Goldberg is going to come back on June 5th. It's the go home Nitro for the Great American Bash. And well, the ratings are a bit of a disappointment. It's the most hyped Nitro since the first Bischoff Russo Nitro, which was back on April 10th. And this means we've actually got Goldberg's first match back. And it's like a pay per view style lineup of matches. And people during the day, backstage, before we're live on TV, people in WCW were internally saying, hey, man, we might pop a 4 rating on this. I mean, there was a lot of confidence. As it turned out, Raw did a 5.95 rating and Nitro got a 2.86. The head to head was 5.49 for Raw and 2.67 for Nitro. So Raw still more than doubles Nitro. And that means technically you've got 9.4 million people watching wrestling here. The show is from the Phillips Arena, a far cry from the Georgia Dome, but still in Atlanta. And there's 13,487 fans here. Now, remember, folks, back in July of 98, and we're in June of 2000, so we're less than 2 years away. Goldberg went from selling 40,000 tickets to beat Hulk Hogan at the Georgia Dome to now we're at the Phillips Arena where we've sold 5,939 seats. We have roughly 1/8 of the crowd that we did less than 2 years prior. This fall is really
Amazing.
something to be studied.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I mean, all of it is just kind of look at the rapid deterioration. That stat we gave a couple of months ago in North Carolina at the Dean Dome, how small that house was less than 11 months later. It wasn't 11 months in between shows. So, yeah, and the kind of the buzz or the chatter and everything that kind of went with it. And I think playoffs were over or we weren't facing it. I think there was a lot of signs that gave folks optimism for Bill's return. And yeah, there was an equal amount of disappointment when the number came out.
You're going to be working Sting, and it's implied it's a title match. But of course, Sting beats you in 2 minutes and 24 seconds, and Bischoff immediately announces it's not a title match. But still, we've got the champion losing on TV here in 2 minutes and 24 seconds.
Shock TV. It just at its peak.
By the way, show that belt again. Show that photo again, Silva. That's not the original Big Gold Belt. Just so everybody knows, that's one of the cast copies that was made of the Big Gold Belt by Andre Freitas at AFX Studios. And I know there's been lots of questions about when did it make its last appearance. The actual belt would be at the following pay-per-view in July for Bash at the Beach. But that belt right there is probably the one that's now in Hogan's shop, if I had to guess. Because
how do you know that?
Well, because he's got the Jeff Jarrett nameplate on his down there. So it makes sense that like when you came down and laid down for Hogan, you're wearing a different one. If Silva will throw it back up there, I'll show you. Here's the tail. Look how far apart. Well, a few things. First of all, it's all gold. So the cast copies were gold plated. The actual original is made out of silver and sort of two-tone, you might call it. So it's got silver and gold. It also had a brown strap. This is a black strap. But if you take a look at the spacing on the actual belt, the spacing between the main plate and the side plate is not that big. You could lay 4 fingers on it right there. That's how big the gap is. On the real one, it's like a finger. So you could just tell very quickly, like, oh, that's a cast copy. That's not the
right, so where is the original one?
It's in the back. WCW still had it.
No, right today.
Oh, it's here in my house in Gunnersville.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where is and so Hogan's got that one that Sting's holding.
Yes. Hogan walked out of Bash at the Beach 2000 with that one and kept it. Now he's got it displayed down at his shop and he's spray painted NWO over it. But that belt that Sting's holding there that now Hogan's held was never actually spray painted. That's just one he did years later for fans to take pictures with and all that.
And there's your story behind the story belts.
There's your little belt nerd stuff.
There you go.
So Sting keeps beating you up after the match. He puts you in the Scorpion Deathlock on the ramp. And then he hits you with a guitar shot and you have to fall off the ramp. Now, I'm not saying that you're not scared to do crazy stunts. We've seen you do some crazy stunts. But boy, you You measure twice and cut once. How nervous were you about taking a bump off a stage when really, I think I know you well enough to say, now, why am I falling off the stage? Could he not just hit me with a guitar and I tumble?
Yes, all of that. And I
Yeah.
get it. They were hyped up and wanted to every segment of the Goldberg return. Just they were swinging for the fences. I say they. I'm assuming Vince and Eric, but yeah, they were swinging for the fences. A lot of positivity, if you will, trying to. I mean, everybody was, you know, run the play, Jeff. Run the play. That's what I did.
There's some news and notes about Lex Luger and Miss Elizabeth. I guess they weren't happy with some planned angles and they're sent home from some Thunder tapings on May 30th. Luger's supposed to do a run in and attack Palumbo, and he didn't really want to do that. I guess he didn't like the direction that program was headed. And Miss Elizabeth has a little more sympathy from the locker room. I guess the idea is they wanted her to wrestle Kimberly at the pay per view. But Miss Elizabeth, despite being around wrestling this whole time, she's not a trained wrestler. She's never had a match. But, that didn't matter because Vince Russo did it, bro. So maybe there's a little more sympathy for her. Let's talk about Baltimore, where we are here. Got a great history of Great American Bashes. And this is not one of those great shows or a great drawing show. It does, here in 2000, the Great American Bash has a paid gate of $154,445, but that's from 4,677 fans. The idea that there's less than 5,000 paid for a Great American Bash in Baltimore is crazy, especially when you think the WWF has never been hotter. Back in 99, there were over 11,000 fans here. Back in 98, there were nearly 13,000 fans here. And just to give you some context of where we are year over year, take a look at these numbers from the Observer. The average attendance in June of 99 was 5,874. Now here in June of 2000, 3,204. When you take a look at May of 99, June of 99's gate rather was 146. A year later, we're down 46% to 78 grand. Of course, we're not selling out any house shows, but our ratings are down too. Back in June of 99, we were doing a 3.28. Now here in June of 2000, we're doing a 2.86. So we're down 12.8%. And when we talk about, the actual buy rate, we did a 0.43 for the Bash in 99, and you did 298K at the gate. We're 154,000 here, so roughly half the gate and less than half on a buy rate. We go from a 0.43, which means about $2 million to WCW, to a 0.19, which means about $1.24 million to WCW. I mean, we've halved everything. We've fallen in half in just 1 year.
And to put it in further context, you'll know this probably right off the top of your head. What was the first year of the Great American Bash?
85, yeah.
So, in my mind, the kid from Hendersonville, the first big show, Conrad, and look, in Tennessee, maybe coast shows, and it's going to be race ticket prices, Lawler in a title match, or whatever you want to say. But it was still in the territory. The first kind of big show that was touring in my mind, and of course Mania, or Rumble came later, but I guess Mania maybe would be one. But right at the same time, and just because the WCW talent, and it wasn't called the NWA talent was, we'll call, a part of the territory, that was the Great American Bash always kind of had a sentimental value to me. That's where I'm going with it, because it was the first kind of big touring show, and they came in, and Lawler and my dad ran opposition the night of. They had one at the Liberty Bowl, and WCW didn't draw well. I think that was a bash. But anyway, man, hearing those numbers, Conrad, just dropping in half. But the Great American Bash, isn't that the OG?
Yes.
The very first big show?
Oh, no, that's Starrcade 83.
Ah, okay.
Starrcade 83 is the real granddaddy of them all. And then WrestleMania became a thing, obviously, in March of 85. But at the summer of 85 is where we did a stadium show. And that's probably what you're thinking about, a big outdoor summertime stadium show. The Great American Bash was number one in 85. They did it in Charlotte. It's a high watermark for Jim Crockett Promotions. Flair came in on a helicopter for his
Yep.
entrance. Really cool spectacle stuff. But then the next year is when they did the tour and they booked a bunch of stadiums, and that didn't work out as well in 86. Maybe they
Got it.
they got a little too big for their britches.
They did. Yeah, 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 yeah.